Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Guru. I was taken to Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur by one of my friends, and he ordered me that you preach the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in English language. This is very much essential. On the first meeting, he told me like that. So I left home and I was living alone. Then 1958, I took sannyas, and then I decided to take up the responsibility of my Guru Maharaj. So when I was 70 years old, I decided now I must do and execute the order of my Guru Maharaj, and thus this movement was started in 1965. When I first came, I had no money. I got a free passage through some Indian steam navigation company. So I came by ship. So when I was on the ship at Boston port, Commonwealth port, I was thinking that I have come here, I do not know what is the purpose. Of course, when I came to your country, without any friend, without any means, but I had full faith that my Guru Maharaj is with me. This is the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He wanted to deliver this fallen soul, the conditioned soul, rotting in this material world. Krishna sends his devotees. Krishna comes as devotee just to execute this mission, to reclaim the fallen soul from the clutches of illusory energy, material world.
In '68, we went to, our spiritual master asked us to go to London. Actually, it was our idea. The scene, the center of activity was sort of shifting from San Francisco to London. Things were happening in London then. There was the Carnaby Street fashions and the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. Everything was shifting to London about '68. So Prabhupada had always wanted to have a center in London because he was an Indian, and the British Empire, he always thought about London as this vast Wizard of Oz type city in the sky that should have a Krishna temple.
Prabhupada wrote me a letter, and he took this kind of seriously. He said, well, what do you think of Shyam Sundar's idea about meeting the Beatles? And I didn't really know what to say. It all seemed a bit pie in the sky to me, but I thought, well, if he wants to go, why not? And then it wasn't long after that when I decided to go with him.
It had been decided that we were going to go to London. We had flown to Montreal to take darshan. He was there. And on the few days we were there, he was giving very detailed instructions on, how we should perform Harinam Sankirtan. So we knew that that was going to be our key activity in London. We got over there, we stopped in Amsterdam, and then one by one we came over, taking a ferry bus. We were there with little money. We had to, most of the time, live in different parts of town. 7 nights a week we'd go somewhere, to somebody's house, to a Hindu center, to a hippie place, to the arts lab. There was a theater play called Hair. They chanted Hare Krishna as part of the act. So we'd go stand outside that theater, so when the people came out of the theater, we'd be there with the real Hare Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna, I mean, we did anything, anywhere we would just go, our little group of 6. Then after many failed attempts, in the middle of the winter struggle, somehow Shamsunder met George Harrison, and he was searching for spirituality.
He and George Harrison just clicked. They were like brothers.
The big recording came not long after we met George in Abbey Road at the EMI Studios, and we chanted the Hare Krishna mantra.
He wanted to make an album for the Radha-Krishna temple. And all of these people in their white robes, bald heads, going around hitting the Indian bells, just trying to, at times, record all of them, with them sort of not necessarily keeping still all the time, and some of the weird instruments that were being brought in to be recorded. It was absolutely fascinating.
I remember hearing it on a car radio somewhere in the east part of East London, and the disc jockey saying that was a song by a group of bald-headed Americans. George said about taking on this project himself, recording the devotees singing the Hare Krishna mantra, was that he wanted to get across what he believed through a medium that he was familiar with, and that was chanting. That was a 45 record. And it was quite amazing because myself and none of us thought that this was going to be a popular record, and yet it became very popular. It was played in the intermission at the Isle of Wight concert when Bob Dylan was setting up, and it was played at the intermission in a football game in Manchester, where Manchester United was a very popular soccer team. And all the fans, who were probably just there to watch the soccer, started singing along with it because it was only 3 words and they could all do it. And there were 5,000 football fans singing Hare Krishna.
And then that led to the larger album, the Govindam album, which the lead cut was the Brahma Samhita, the Govindam prayers.
The Radha-Krishna temple record, which is actually very beautiful, that would never have made its way out without George's personal involvement.
The Radha-Krishna temple signing, I think, was a masterstroke. I mean, there they were on top of the pops fairly quickly, shocking the nation. I mean, where had we heard world music before that? Nana Muscuri or Manuel, the Music of His Mountains, or something like that. But the Radha-Krishna temple, shaven-headed, singing was it the Hare Krishna mantra, and then that beautiful hypnotic Govinda single afterwards, which has got to be one of the best records ever on Apple.
The whole place was torn up, the building was torn up, so I told George that we just don't have any place to hang out. We're kind of hanging out here and there. And he says, well, and John was in the room, John Lennon, and he said, well, why don't you come out and stay at my place? He had just acquired that place called Tittenhurst Park. So we went out to live with John. He gave the servants' quarters over to us. And by this time, Prabhupada was really anxious to come to England, so he came there, and he stayed out at Tittenhurst Park. We picked him up at the airport in the Apple limousine, the big white rolls, and brought him out there. And the first thing, John and Yoko and George came to see him. That was their first meeting. And Prabhupada was so charming and so alluring and so friendly, and he just captivated everyone.
You are also anxious to bring some peace in the world. I have read sometimes your statements, you are anxious also. Everyone, every saintly person should be anxious to bring in peace in the world.
This initiation took place in the Tittenhurst Park. There were supposed to be 4 of us taking initiation that particular time. So when I got the name Dhananjaya, Prabhupada explained, obviously this means that, the winner of wealth. He said that money is flying in all directions, and he started making some gestures with his hands. And he told me, he said, in this life you'll have no difficulty with money.
Prabhupada waited for months. He pushed me so hard to finish this temple. I mean, this temple was a work of art that we put our hearts into it because we were located in the center of downtown London. We wanted a very, very nice place where people could come, Londoners could walk in and feel at home. Not a run-down storefront, but a proper temple. There were only 2 or 3 of us doing the work. We spent months building this temple room. It was a massive renovation. We tore out one floor and one above and made it a 2-story high room. Prabhupada was very patient. But finally, after sitting in John Lennon's place and in various apartments for month after month, finally he gave us a deadline that we had to have the temple opening by December. We were so busy, there were so few of us, and we had so many activities to perform that we didn't plan ahead very well. We didn't even know where we were going to get deities, but we knew Krishna would take care of it somehow. This was the kind of spirit that prevailed in those days. Just work as hard as you can to spread Krishna consciousness, and things will happen, the magic will happen. The deities appeared, just as if by magic, only days before the installation was to take place, after so much preparation, months of building this temple, and no deities. We didn't give a thought. Where are these going to come from? So Krishna had to appear. He had to. He promises.
So glorious was this burial place temple. The deities are given the name Sri Radha-London-Isvara, or the Ishvara is the grand supreme lord of the whole of London. At the moment of Prabhupada's departure, just before he left, he walked into the temple room to say goodbye to the deities. He came in and paid obeisances, full out flat dandavats on the blue carpet, stayed on the ground for a long time. And when he got up, I noted that he had tears in his eyes. And he looked over at me and very matter-of-factly said, "If you just do as I have instructed, what I have taught you so far, you can go back to Godhead. Do it, just do it." And at that point, I, of course, teared up and folded my hands and simply watched Srila Prabhupada as he turned and walked away. Such a poignant moment, witnessing Srila Prabhupada leaving the burial place front door on his way to Boston on December 21st, 1969.
Seeing all the devotees hanging on to every moment of Prabhupada's last few minutes with him. So devotees who experience these going and comings, either an arrival or a departure, were always wondering if they would ever see Srila Prabhupada again, and trying to capture the moment where he carried his bag and with his servants headed towards the departure gate and got on a plane and left. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
We had a big program in Glasgow. There was at least 500 people in there. They loved Prabhupada. Somehow the Scottish took a real liking to Prabhupada. So we had this big Vyasa sign on the stage, and we had a massive kirtan. So Prabhupada did this amazing lecture. It's actually, I've heard it many times since. And he lectured from the Bhagavad Gita. And what happened was, at the end of the lecture, so Prabhupada said, so, are there any questions? And then one guy stood up and he started to say, you know, basically what he was trying to say was that I am God.
His question is, why must we do something to become God when we're already God?
You are not God, you are dog. That's the opposite. Do you know what is God? How you are God? God is the controller. Are you controller? You are controlled. The control cannot be God. God means controller. Anyone who is controlled, he cannot be God. Anyone who, if one is controller, then he is God. Therefore, you are not absolutely controller. You are both controlled and controller. That everyone is. Just like you are controller in your family, but you are controlled in the office. Similarly, everyone is dualistic. He is controller and control. But if you find somebody that he is only controller, not control, that is God. He is part of control, part of God. Means you have got little power of controlling, but that you are not absolute controller. So first of all, you have to ascertain whether you are absolutely controller or you are controlled. First of all, you answer this question. Are you absolutely controller? Therefore, nobody is absolutely controller. He is controlled by the laws of nature. How he is absolutely controller? You are controlled by death. You are controlled by birth. You are controlled by disease. You are controlled by old age. How you become controller? Therefore you are not God.
Here we're looking at one particular property called Runnymede Park, which is very close to the River Thames. And so when George saw the place, and it hadn't been occupied for some years, and it was quite overgrown, he said this should be called Runny Down Park, because it hadn't been maintained for so long. He called me in and he said, I think now is a good time to ask our good friend, Mr. George Harrison, if he would like to help us find a bigger property. And then I said, oh, by the way, do you think you would like to help us find a bigger place? He said, I would be honored. I'd be very much honored. When I was calling George, I was telling him the location and the price and so on and so forth. And he said, I really like this place. And I said, well, when would you like to come out? And he said, actually, I can't. I'm going to Los Angeles, we're having a meeting, so I'll be gone for 6 months. He said, but don't worry, I completely trust your judgment. So he said, don't worry, we're going to get this place. On one condition, that we don't pay a penny above the asking price.
I picked Prabhupada up at Heathrow Airport in a helicopter and flew him into the front lawn. He landed in a helicopter.
So we just ran back round to the lawn where they were going to land and yelled to everyone that he was coming. And we were running towards the helicopter, and the pilot of the helicopter was flipping out because the blades were still turning. And we could see Prabhupada's, just his head, through the window of the door.
Gave me the facility of assembling in this nice house this good boy, George Harrison. We must give him all glory. We must be thankful to him that he has given us the facility, and Krishna will bless him more and more.
And the temple room was a whole hive of activity.
Then he went into the temple room and they built a Vyasa-san incorporating the railings from the staircases. And it was very big. And Prabhupada looked at it and he asked, oh, who's this for? This is for Lord Shiva?
So this is Prabhupada doing this arti. And after, he comes to the point where he starts circumambulating the deities and then invites the whole temple room into the deity room. There's a lot of space. This is a big room, so there's space behind the altar. This amazing energy. Every time Prabhupada danced, he raised up his hands for people to dance. There was this energy, and just the whole, everyone felt it. You were just lifted off your feet by this ecstatic energy. To be able to do that with Srila Prabhupada and dance with him so closely, it was absolutely amazing.
His lecture, after the deities had been installed, was so energized.
Do not think that we have installed a marble statue. The rascals will say they are hidden. No. We are worshipping Krishna personally. Krishna personally, Krishna has kindly assumed this form just because we cannot see Krishna, the gigantic Krishna. Art Krishna is everywhere. Atasya Krishna namadi navaved grayam indriya. Our imperfect senses cannot see Krishna immediately. But Krishna is so kind. As we can see stone, we can see wood, we can see earth, we can see water, we can see color. Therefore, Krishna comes before us, just quite suitable for our vision.
We were always trying to keep Prabhupada with us as long as possible. We were gluttonous for Prabhupada. Very selfish. So very early on we hit on the idea that if we keep Prabhupada busy talking to famous or influential people, that he'll stay and stay and stay. So we made a long schedule of visits.
According to our Vedic understanding, there are 4 things, sinful, pillars of sinful life. Illicit sex, unnecessary killing of animals, intoxication and gambling.
But you can lead a very happy life, still eating...
No, our students are trained in that way.
There are a lot of very good people in the world.
You can see from your son. They can sit down anywhere. They can lie down. There is no artificial living. They are satisfied with nice food stuff made from vegetable and milk and chanting Hare Krishna, holy name of God.
I see, he's happy. But you know, he came from a very happy home, so he should be happy, shouldn't he?
Yes.
Very happy home, brothers and sisters, and we've all been very happy. And I hope he will remain happy.
He's still happier.
Yes, I can see.
He was happy, now he is happier. We are speaking of this Krishna consciousness. The message is from the spiritual world. It is not of this material world. That's it. Therefore, sometimes people may misunderstand.
Yes.
So we have to explain it nicely. But the entire subject matter of Krishna consciousness is not of this material world.
We scheduled philosophers and clergymen, and wherever Prabhupada could get an interesting dialogue with people who we knew would engage Prabhupada's intelligence, where he would really unleash the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. People from all walks of life would come and engage in a conversation with Prabhupada that would be remarkable. And Prabhupada would talk about it the rest of the day and into the night and bring it up in his lectures the next day, what was discussed at that meeting. And this kept him occupied and kept him very happy there in London.
This is such a beautiful scene. Srila Prabhupada taking us to Vyasa Puja feast in his room. Somehow or other, Vishaka and I were alone with him. She was taking stills and I was filming. In my years of filming Srila Prabhupada, this is one of the most memorable times. He was totally fixed and concentrated on taking prasadam. He seemed to be able to tell the quality of the preparation with his eyes.
Our Sankirtan for Lord Jagannath and for the Rath Yatra festival was, as you can see, completely ecstatic. Jagannath was the center of our lives. Lord Jagannath came to us before Radha-London-Isvara came to us via Shamsunder. Shamsunder carved these beautiful deities. And they, like in San Francisco, were the center of all the devotees' lives. During Prashadam, we used to even speak about Lord Jagannath and Lord Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balaram's beauty. And we would race up from Prashadam just to sit at their feet and sing Jagannatha Swami, Nayana Patagahami Bhavatume. So by the time this event came, you can see how ecstatic the devotees are chanting. And in some cases, it was the first time that devotees from all these 3 European countries were together in one place. London Rath Yatra became so famous as the long walking yatra.
Everyone directed Prabhupada towards the Vyasa-san, and he looked at it, then he looked around, and then he just shook his head a little and started to walk. And then when everyone realized that Prabhupada was going to walk in front of the cart with everybody else, it was like a wave went through the devotees as they heard that this was happening. Everyone started to dance. And it was quite amazing that there was this seemingly very small old man in the middle of all these tall, young, strong Western men. And he was completely directing them, just with a flick of his finger. They would lift off the ground and dance and spin and do whatever. And the number of mridangas that were being played and the vigor that they were being played with wasn't that the kirtan was particularly fast, but the way everyone was playing the mridangas, their hearts were in their hands the way they were playing them.
And then we're holding hands and keeping a circle around Prabhupada to keep from anyone bumping into Srila Prabhupada. And it wasn't until actually later on, when the Chaitanya Charitamrita was translated by Srila Prabhupada, that we realized that this was all the same as in Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Of course, this Rath Yatra became very famous because Prabhupada never sat in his Vyasa-san, which was there, and walked and danced the entire way. And what was the amazing thing was just days before, and weeks before, he had been very ill. He was in Mayapur in Calcutta.
In the Chaitanya Charitamrita it says that Rath Yatra cart seemed to be higher than Mount Meru. And then Prabhupada writes in the purport, there was a gorgeous Rath Yatra festival in London in 1973. The Guardian newspaper reported that the Rath Yatra cart seemed to be higher than Nelson's column. And he put that in the purport of Chaitanya Charitamrita.
is in Trafalgar Square, the center of the British Empire. Thousands and thousands of people. This was Prabhupada's triumphant moment. Looking out at thousands of people chanting Hare Krishna in Trafalgar Square.
We made a lot of promises to the authorities regarding, how we would conduct ourselves, things we would and wouldn't do. We set up these tents. This is the one right with those yellow tents. In order to secure these tents with the lines you can see that come from them, we just drilled holes into the cement and drove iron stakes, pegs in there. Which was a total no-no for the authorities. But anyway, the festival went off. It was just really sensational with so many people. Prabhupada was very pleased, there was no doubt about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for your kindly participating in this great Radha-Yatra festival. I have already explained what is this Radha-Yatra festival. It is in commemoration of a grand visit by Lord Krishna along with his elder brother Balaram and his youngest sister Subhadra.
The overwhelming memory of that festival is the dance. The dancing that just defied logic, because you just kept going and going and going and just wanted more and more and more and just wanted it to last forever.
The atmosphere was, as it always was whenever Prabhupada was present, incredibly intense, but now it had a special intensity because it was more than clear that Prabhupada was making his last appearance for us in the West. And what struck me was his having darshan of Radha Gokulananda. No words spoken, but simply his presence before the deities. One had a clear sense that he is now simply reciprocating with the deities, and they are saying, yes, it's that time.
Today is known as Nandutsav. It is a day following Lord Krishna's appearance day, when Nanda Maharaj celebrated with the big Utsav. And it was on this day, 82 years ago, that His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, appeared on this planet. This is his 82nd appearance day celebration. Srila Prabhupada is not forced to come onto this planet like any ordinary personality. He is not bounded by any laws of karma or material nature. And it is particularly his mercy that he chose to appear on this day, because automatically when we think of Krishna, we have to think of Srila Prabhupada, because he appeared on the day after Lord Krishna. So this is the actual system of spiritual life, that one should think of Krishna and the spiritual master with equal faith and with equal reverence. And this is automatically done because of these 2 days falling together. Om Abhyanatamidandasa Jananjana Salakaya Chaksula Milakam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave. Our spiritual master has opened our eyes, which were closed due to the ignorance of material attachment. Srila Prabhupada's early childhood was marked by the worship of the deities of Radha-Govinda and Lord Jagannath. From his very childhood, his father and mother, who were pure devotees of the Lord, gave him the deity of Radha-Govinda, gave him small Radha-Krishna deities to worship. And the family deity of the Mullik house was Radha-Govinda. So Srila Prabhupada saw from his young childhood the worship of Sri Radha-Govinda, and he imitated this worship with his own Radha and Krishna deities. So now Srila Prabhupada has established this mission. There are over 108 temples around the world. There are more than 10,000 fully devoted disciples all over the world. And Srila Prabhupada has now come back again to the Western world. Jai Prabhupada! So, Srila Prabhupada's desire is that this movement, as he has established it, it should be maintained and developed very nicely. We should not allow it to be diminished. We have got a most important position now in the world. There is no other religion, practically genuine religion, except ours remaining. So he wants us to maintain and to further develop this mission. And he is coming here now to strengthen us so that we should become very much fixed up in Krishna consciousness, so that we will never fall down to the grips of Maya.
Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine
But this is the arrangement of Krishna. If we strictly try to serve the spiritual master, his order, then Krishna will give us all facilities. That is the secret. Although there was no possibility, I never thought, but I took it little seriously by studying a commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, the verse Bhavasha Buddhi Rekiha Kurunandana. In connection with that verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives his commentary that we should take up the words from the spiritual master as our life and soul. We should try to carry out the instruction, the specific instruction of the spiritual master very rigidly, without caring for our personal benefit or loss. So, this is a memorable day. What he desired, I am trying little bit and you are all helping me. So I have to thank you more. You are actually representative of my Guru Maharaj, because you are helping me in executing the order of my Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much.